In early 2013, when Jesse noticed that many of the laws that were be directly affecting women were being passed by groups made up basically of all men. She says, I saw a lot of male governors and male legislators passing laws without women sitting at those tables, and I thought, we really need to encourage more women to run to gain equal representation, because what we have now just isn't working very well. Women make up a little over half of the population of the United States, as well as here in Iowa. But the representation isn't there. In order to achieve equal representation, we need more women to run for office on all levels. This is an effort we can all get behind. Someone doing her part in Massachusetts for all of us across the United States is our guest speaker for the evening, Beth Boland. Although the name may not be a household name in Iowa, I assure you she is no stranger to our state. A native of Iowa and the daughter of former Lieutenant Governor Joanne Zimmerman, Beth is also no stranger to I lost my spot here, to the mission of Dawn's List. The apple certainly did not fall far from the tree. Boston area resident, Beth is currently a partner at Foley and Lardner law firm, where she specializes in securities and class action litigation. She was recently named one of the most influential attorneys in Massachusetts, and she has also been named one of the top 50 Massachusetts female lawyers by Boston Magazine. Beth has served as one of the youngest presidents of the Women's Bar Association of Massachusetts, and among many awards was given the Abigail Adams Award in 1999 by the Massachusetts Women's Political Caucus. Her contributions do not end there. Outside of her extensive work in the legal world, she has fundraised for numerous Democratic candidates in Massachusetts. She served as the finance chair for Massachusetts Attorney General Martha Coakley, her run in 2006. She's also led fundraising efforts for U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Shannon O'Brien, who ran against Governor Romney, and she served on the finance team for Hillary Clinton's campaign for president. So please join me in welcoming Beth Boland to our award.
Thank you. I love coming to Iowa. I've been in Boston now. It's amazing to me. So I was talking with some folks, went to Dowling, grew up here, and left about 1980, I guess, was when I went off to college. And then we lived in Chicago. I met my husband there, and then New York, and now Boston for the last 25 years. But every opportunity I can get, I come here and go to the Iowa State Fair. Is one of my favorite times of year. I try to develop clients here in Des Moines so I can visit them every single opportunity that I can and have in-depth conversations while I'm also visiting with my family, and especially my mother and my sister and her family are out here too. It has, as Andrea was saying, the thing that has really motivated me, that you can tell through the activities that I've done since leaving Iowa, has been developing talented women into the judiciary, into elected office in particular. There's virtually no woman who comes through the pipeline in Massachusetts who does not cross my doorstep in some way, shape, or form. And it's a cause to which I am particularly and lifelong devoted to. We've started to talk about some of the statistics. We know them well. Here in Iowa, I'll tell you a funny story. It was about 5 years or so ago. It might have been the first meeting of Dawn that, and I feel like I've known Dawn since its inception, because it came up in like my bedroom got taken over, and was probably the first headquarters for the operation. And I went to the first meeting of Dawn, and there was the requisite kind of hand-wringing saying, here in Iowa, we've never had a woman in Congress, none in the corner office as governor, although some really, really great women who are statewide, in statewide office, such as Bonnie Campbell, Pat Judge, Elaine Baxter. We now have Senate President Pam Yogan. Big job. Very high profile. My mother, of course. Some great women coming up through the pipeline, but not having that the governor's job or in Congress. And I felt at that time, about 5 years ago, I said, boy, there must be a big tie for 49th place. Because other than, maybe Washington or Arizona or something like that, which have a panoply of women in Congress and in statewide office, there's a bunch of us that are sitting around all having in the same conundrum, the same quandary, saying, how could we possibly break through? Well, I will tell you that in Massachusetts in the last 5 years, we now have 3 out of 9 of our congressional delegation is women, and all of that is recent. As we look ahead to this election season in November, 4 out of 5 constitutional offices, we have 5 statewide offices, and 4 out of 5 of them may be women. We have great women, all of whom have a chance to become governor, attorney general, treasurer, and state auditor in Iowa. And that is, from where we were 5 years ago, it's like magic of what has happened. So I do think, and as I know, having grown up with the strong and talented women, and I see them, I talk with them whenever I come back, and I know that they are out there, and that this organization is there to, push them to the next level. It will come. It will happen. And sometimes it kind of bunches up. You know how, like, when your kids are ready for a big growth spurt, I say that they kind of bunch up a little, and then they just shoot up? Well, I think, what I see happening in Iowa, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going to happen for the next round of caucuses and how Dawn can really, break out. There's a big opportunity for that, and how you can really marshal your resources, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But we do see the thing that I think happens during that bunching up period before you really reach forward. There's research out there that basically says in any organization, unless you have a critical mass of like 33% or so, whether it's women or African Americans or ethnic minorities, that there is that kind of resistance to that. When you get there, whether it's a corporate board, whether it's in the legislature or whatever, or in the C-suite in a corporation, you still feel kind of outnumbered and marginalized. I represent lots of women, or lots of corporate boards, and the number of women that I talk with on corporate boards, this is the pinnacle of corporate America. And they will tell me, I get talked over at our board meetings, I get marginalized at our board meetings, I'm not listened to in the same way as my male colleagues, and these are some of the most, from the external appearances, you're shocked to hear it, but it's true. And so we think about, how do we get to that critical mass? And what's weird is, I've started noticing this, across industries, trying to get to that 33% level, there is a natural level of tension, a natural level of resistance. You see in Congress that there are approximately 18% of our, in U.S. Congress, are women. In law firms, about 18% are women, our partners are women. On corporate boards, about 17% are women. In finance, about 19% of the senior women in finance are women. So you see this, all of these, and no matter what kind of industry you're talking about, they're all hovering for years between that 15 and 20% mark. And then you try to figure out, how do we break out of that? How do we go from 0 women in your congressional delegation to 3 out of 9? We now have Nikki Tsongas, who was the wife of Senator Tsongas. She's in the House of Representatives. We have Elizabeth Warren, a rock star. I don't know if any of you have ever met her. She is a rock star. I was so honored to work so closely with her on that race. And we now just have Katherine Clark. And I'm going to talk with you a little bit about that race, because I was there at the very, 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 very beginning trying to figure out where to position her, how to make that race win. And there were a group of us that took her through, I mean, she was the candidate, she was the star in that. And how we were able to make that happen in a way that we just didn't think, we had never been able to make that happen before. So first off, I say, you have to pick the right candidate, okay? It's not the perfect candidate, it's the good enough candidate. What I worry about, especially among us, that we look at them and we say, oh, she's a little too tall, she's a little too short, she's a little, her hair's too blonde, her ear's too long, or, too big, or whatever, okay? Guess what? For every single race, for every single candidate, there is some fatal flaw that if you looked at it in the rear view mirror, you'd say, that's why she lost. But guess what? That fatal flaw, everybody's got that. Their male opponents have it. Everybody's got one. And they're thinking about, oh my God, I've got this fatal flaw too. Or actually, their staff is worrying about that. The candidate themselves probably aren't worrying about that at all. Only women are. And so it doesn't have to be the perfect candidate. It has to be just the good enough candidate. And in our case, getting Catherine Clark, she was getting some buzz. She was very nice. She's actually, a very close friend of mine, about my age or so. And sometimes it's hard to think of them as being, oh my God, they're going to be, she's going to be the congresswoman. But we realized in surveying the field that she was, I shouldn't just say good enough, because she really is a star. She's not perfect. None of us are. But none of her opponents were either. Okay? Picking the right office. Doing your polling ahead of time. We had strategy sessions and figured out, okay, does she run for lieutenant governor? Does she run for treasurer? Does she run for this? Does she run for that? Okay? And all of us around the table said, she's got to run for Congress. We're so tired of not having somebody in Congress. Will she do it? She actually had to consult for real with her husband. Are you okay with this? And luckily he said yes. And we were able to at least go forward. Then you recruit the right team. One of the things, and I'm so glad that we have Barbara Lee's research, that's on the table. Running a woman for office is different than running a guy. The messages are different. Her research is out there and tells you how it needs to be different. There are campaign consultants that are out there that are specially attuned to running women, and that's who we picked for her team. We helped her pick that team. And they weren't people actually from Massachusetts. Then, here's the more important part. You create the bubble, okay? When this not completely perfect candidate is going through the process, the only thing between them and sheer chaos is what I call the bubble. It is that group of people that have the pull, the money, and the political influence that are willing to lay down in front of the bus and quell any of the that always happens inevitably in any candidacy, in any campaign. So you have to get those people. I mean, I'll give you a great story. I hosted Nancy Pelosi in my firm one time, and it was right when she had just become Speaker of the House. And she says, she was talking about George Bush, and how this is like, talk about far from perfect candidates. And she had like a pop bottle, and she took the top off and she threw it across the table, and she says, that's as talented as George Bush is, but he's got the bubble around him. And I'm like, the bubble, of course, we need the bubble. So how do you do that? How do you do that? We conspire. I'll just say two quick things. We conspire. There is a group of like 5 of us, Barbara Lee, me, and some other women who are die-hard committed to this goal. And we will use whatever clout we have, we'll use whatever money we have, we'll use whatever organs within, the newspapers, so that that bubble is created, so that they've got that insulation, that Teflon to get through the process. And then there's money, of course. I could talk for days about the psychology of getting women to raise money, but here's one thing that I will tell you. The place where you start is the women professionals. Okay, you got to start with the women with money. You start with the accountants and the doctors, and especially the lawyers. You should be joined at the hip with the president of the Women's Bar Association and all of her executive committee. Recruit them, woo them, make sure that they know how important that is, because women lawyers, at least most of them, will make some money. Most of them have some political idea of how their profession fits in with that, and the willingness to go for it, especially if you're with the Women's Bar Association. I'll get that right away. So, last but not least, Emily's List. Got to be joined at the hip with them. I am so impressed by that organization. And once you get all of those pieces there, and especially those, the women professionals, you have to just be relentless about pursuing them and getting them on board with the idea, and then moving forward with their fundraising to help you through. We raised, what was it, $12 million for Martha Coakley's Senate race. I mean, gazillions of dollars, 40 million plus for Elizabeth Warren when she ran for Senate. It does not happen by magic. It happens by careful cultivation. And I will tell you, those women professionals were our bulwark. They were the ones who really, really, really helped us get over that line. So, you have a great opportunity in less than a year or actually, what are we, 2014? It's about, you've got your elections this November, but the caucuses coming up for the presidential race. Let's assume that Hillary Clinton runs. Dawn, I know, has already been out there and will continue to be out there. I know that Emily's List has been really pushing that. That could be the absolute breakthrough, where you get your organization together, you do it right off the backs of the presidential race, and right off those coattails into the next congressional election, and be able to get through those numbers and get some change there. So there's a path forward. I hope that I've helped illuminate that path a little bit, and some hope in the future. And one small thing, that if anybody wants to talk about binders of women, I made those binders along with a few of my friends. And Iowa should be doing the same. It's about getting women into appointed office as well as elected office. So, best of luck to you. There's so much talent in this room. I have such high hopes for Iowa, and I know the pool that's out there. I know the determination that's out there, and it will change. It will get better. Thank you.
If we could give one more round of applause for Beth, that was amazing. And I should note too, she came all the way from Massachusetts. I noticed to your family too.